I had worked with a financial advisor early in my career, I definitely would have had a lot easier of a time paying off some debts. It would have helped me get a better grasp on managing my cash flow. My name is George Sardakis. I am an associate at Hirsch Financial Services. Today we're going to address whether or not young professionals actually need a financial advisor. Now, it's a common misconception that financial advisors only work with wealthy, older people. And as of the past couple of years, that tends to not be the case anymore. A lot of young professionals have their own financial challenges, but many of them just consider, I'll just handle it and figure it out on my own. What we're going to discuss is something that those assumptions miss, which is the decisions that we make in our 20s and 30s tend to compound and may affect us later on in life in our 40s, 50s, and 60s. We also want to understand that getting the foundation early and understanding our fundamentals is only going to pay us dividends later down the road, and that will compound in its own right. The misconception also misses that establishing habits and establishing good financial decisions, understanding our risk tolerance, our risk perception, and our risk capacities is only going to help us make investment decisions a little easier later on in life. Now, speaking from my own experience, if I had worked with a financial advisor early in my career, I definitely would have had a lot easier of a time paying off some debts that I had outstanding, such as credit card debts, student loans, and the car loan at the time. And it would have helped me get a better grasp on managing my cash flows. This way I can put some money aside or maybe balance my budget a little easier to accomplish other financial goals I had at the time. What I've learned in working in this field is that financial advisors aren't people who necessarily only look at investments and portfolios. They're someone who take a step back and look at the broader financial context to make recommendations and help their clients make financial decisions in their own right. Now, when does it make sense to work with a financial advisor? Well, there's four scenarios where having an advisor actually makes sense early in our career. The first is when we're looking to manage debt and looking to invest at the same time. Navigating this can be kind of a pretty hard tightrope to walk because we want to make sure that we're putting enough money into our investment accounts while at the same time putting money towards debt that would help to reduce the overall balances and help pay those debts off faster. So, in that vein, sequencing matters, understanding interest rate matters. We'd want to maybe address higher interest rate debts first and allow the investments to grow at such a rate where we're getting returns that are higher than our lower interest rate debts, such as a car loan or a mortgage. It's not necessarily as simple as saying, I want to pay this debt off first. I want to be completely debt free. There are some debts that are good debts to have, again, such as car loans or mortgage, maybe student loans at the same time. The second scenario is when we've experienced such a significant increase in our income. This could come by way of maybe a promotion or a job change, or maybe we started a business and we're seeing such a big growth in that business. Having such a sudden income could drastically change our lifestyle. So being on top of our expenses, being on top of what that income looks like, and working with a financial advisor in conjunction with that could help us to allocate those resources appropriately, maybe again pay off debts or maybe increase investments to our 401k or some kind of other outside investment account while being able to enjoy ourselves at the same time. Working with an advisor would help us balance all of that. The third is we don't necessarily have structure or a system built to handle our money. Now, this isn't always something that's our fault. It's just how our relationship with money has been established from our youth. Working with an advisor could help us put that structure and that system in place so we can start to make healthier financial decisions and start to build these good financial habits, allocating money towards a 401k, for example, or investing money in after tax account, or maybe it's just something as simple as balancing our budget. Establishing these systems is something that we could work closely with a financial advisor to accomplish because they're an unbiased third party and they do take our personalities into account, but at the end of the day, they're going to be the ones who are going to help us think of strategies to implement these good habits. And finally, the last one is when we're looking to make financial decisions that we're not necessarily confident in, whether that's making contributions to a traditional or a Roth IRA, whether it's uh, establishing an HSA, or maybe it's whether we should buy or lease our next car or buy or rent a home. Working with an advisor allows us the opportunity to take a step back and get not just a second opinion, but also allows us to put numbers to each of these questions to help make these decisions a little more concretely. It also allows for the clarity and the peace of mind and reduces our decision anxiety when making big decisions like these. As an example, maybe we have a client who wants to invest for retirement and they also want to buy a house in the next 5 to 7 years. How exactly would they accomplish it? Well, the advisor would go ahead and they would put pen to paper and put the numbers up and say, well, maybe we can contribute X amount to the 401k, maybe we can contribute Y amount to a investment account, which would allow the funds to grow moderately. So this way we have some kind of growth independent of how much money you're putting into it as well. So we could use those funds to buy the house, or different house hunting strategies, such as taking out different types of, maybe different type of mortgage or different funding mechanisms. All of these things are tools that the advisor has in their arsenal to allow us to help accomplish our financial goals. A deeply under talked about way that an advisor can help us in our financial and personal lives is how we can take advantage of our employer benefits. Things such as a 401k and understanding the match and the terms that are associated with the 401k. Maybe it's a situation where the employer offers us health insurance, but there's a bunch of different plans. What an advisor can do when we're looking to explore different types of employer benefits, such as health insurance, they allow us, again, as I mentioned before, they put pen to pad and they can understand not just the financial aspects of it, but maybe a certain doctor's not in network with a certain health insurance, but my spouse has another carrier and my doctor's in network with that carrier. Having an advisor means having someone to help us navigate these questions and kind of just be a soundboard. Being that a lot of us, up until this point in our lives, maybe 24, 25, 26, we've been on our parents' health insurance plan, and now we're looking for health insurance for the first time. Having an advisor could also help us navigate how to find it, where to find it, what benefits I should be looking for, what kinds of plans I should be looking for. Health insurance in and of itself can be extremely complicated. I'm not saying that's not something that someone can navigate on their own, but having an advisor could help facilitate navigating those waters, especially if we have an employer plan. Those can get a little convoluted and complicated as well. Adjacent to health insurance is an HSA account. An advisor can help us understand what that HSA is, and then also how much we should be contributing to the HSA for the tax-free benefit. So an HSA is a medical account which allows us to contribute pre-tax dollars, which means we get the write-off for it this year. And the funds within the account grow tax deferred, which means we're not taxed on it while the funds are in the account. And as long as the funds are used for qualified medical purposes, we're actually able to use them tax free. So, working with an advisor allows us the opportunity as the client to understand how much we should be contributing to the HSA and then which qualified medical expenses we should be earmarking these funds for, and not just using it willy nilly just for maybe copays and stuff like that. And finally, and this is something that's starting to become a lot more popular, is something called equity-based compensation. Now, if we work for a startup or if we work for a legacy corporation, we have the opportunity to earn equity and stock in that company, which means if I work for a Fortune 500 company, maybe I'm allowed 200 shares of the company over the course of the next 5 years. And each year we have 40 shares of that company that vest, which means that I'm eligible to start taking money from each of those shares and sell them. And having an advisor allows us the opportunity to understand what the tax consequences of that's going to be, how we should spend each of those shares, or if we should continue to invest it, and making sure that because we work for this company and because we're awarded shares, that our entire portfolio isn't over concentrated in one company and our entire net worth doesn't hinge upon the performance of this company. It also allows us the opportunity to work with someone who can better understand the terms of the stock agreement and help us understand that if I leave the company, what happens to any unvested shares or what happens to the shares that I already have? How can I work with that? So let's say, for instance, we have a client who has 100 shares in company XYZ, and she wants to sell off some of those shares to help pay for her child's college expenses. Well, the advisor would take a look at all of the shares and understand what the tax implications are for selling each of the lot. If we have a share that we've had for 5 years in the company and it has a lower cost basis, but the stock has grown, that share in the stock has grown 20%, versus we have another company that's had a lower cost basis and that's grown about 50%. Which shares should we sell so this way we can have a lower tax consequence? Or future planning, should we sell the shares with higher tax consequences? This way later on we have a lower tax consequence or not as high of a tax consequence. All of these are examples of when we may consider having a financial advisor. But what about if we don't necessarily need one? When might I not need a financial advisor? Well, if our situation is relatively straightforward, if I'm single and I'm a W 2 employee and I don't have any major debts, maybe it's a situation where we're making contributions to our 401k, we're already getting the employer match, we're doing everything right, and my budget is pretty balanced. I don't really have much to worry about outside of maybe a few credit cards. That doesn't necessarily warrant the advice from a professional. On the other hand, when we are looking for an advisor, what are some things that we may want to look for? Well, there's four that come to mind. The first is this advisor a fiduciary, which means that they have our best interests at heart? They're making recommendations that are in our best interests. We want to understand how they get paid. Are they a fee-based financial advisor? Are they a flat fee financial advisor? Are they project-based planners? Do they make commissions on sales and transactions? We want to know if the advisor works with someone like us. Do they work with primarily retirees? Do they work primarily with business owners? Do they work primarily with young professionals who are navigating student loans and understanding how to navigate the world for the first time? Having an advisor who has experience working with people like us makes our lives a lot easier because we don't have to worry about if they're going to second guess the recommendation. And then finally, where do we find them? Do they meet us where we're at? Are they local to me? And I prefer working with people where I can go to their office. Do they meet on Zoom? And maybe I live an hour away from them, but because we're all comfortable working with Zoom or any other video conferencing, that we're able to meet that way. Do they meet me where I'm at in my life? Are they emotionally intelligent and do they get it? These are all questions and things to ask when we're looking for a financial advisor. So, in closing, here are some of the key points just to wrap up. We don't necessarily need an advisor to start managing money well. But when decisions get a little more complex, priorities tend to compete, and working with an advisor can help us sort out our priorities and help us rank order them so this way we're not getting ahead of ourselves and we're not overcomplicating things. We also may want to work with an advisor when it comes to understanding our employer sponsored benefits, 401ks, equity-based compensation, health insurance, HSAs, etc. These can all be complicated, especially with how some of the plans are written. And an advisor who's experienced in working with these could help us understand what it is that our company is offering. The question isn't necessarily, do I have enough money to work with an advisor? It's more, is the juice worth the squeeze? Am I getting what I'm paying for? And is the clarity that the advisor would be providing me necessarily worth the cost right now? So for a lot of young professionals, the answer to those questions tend to be yes, right? Because they're working 12, 14-hour days, they get home and they just don't necessarily want to deal with this, or maybe they don't know how to deal with it and they need someone to help guide them and walk them through a lot of the things that they're trying to navigate on their own. I hope all of this helps. I hope that this helps to provide a little more clarity and answer a question that maybe you've been navigating. And if so, please don't forget to like and subscribe and drop a comment below. Is this something that's been helpful? Are you do it yourself, or are you someone who worked with an advisor? Leave a comment below, and I'll see you next time. Thank you so much.